I should have known something was off when Madison started wearing perfume she never used before, the one I told her I always associated with intimacy. "It's just a new phase," she'd said with a casual shrug, brushing her long coppery curls behind her shoulder like she always did when she was deflecting. But it wasn't the perfume. Not really. It was the look in her eyes. You know how you can tell someone is looking through you, not at you? That's what it was like with her. My best friend of 9 years. My soul sister. My ride or die. And yet, she was drifting. And so was Ethan. It was a Tuesday when everything began unraveling. I was sitting in my car, parked outside our favorite cafe, holding my phone in both hands, debating whether to open the message I wasn't supposed to see. I had picked up Ethan's phone by mistake 2 nights ago when we were at my apartment. Identical black cases. I hadn't realized it wasn't mine until I saw the wallpaper, his stupid Ford Mustang on a cloudy day, the same car he babied more than our relationship. But before I could lock it again, a message had popped up on the screen. Madison. Same time tomorrow? I can't stop thinking about last night. My fingers froze. There are moments in life that feel like they split your soul into before and after. That text was mine. I didn't open it. I didn't confront. I just held the phone like it was radioactive and waited until he came back from the kitchen, smiling with 2 mugs of coffee like nothing in the world had shifted. I said nothing that night. Or the next. But now, sitting here outside the cafe, seeing the 2 of them through the window laughing like they hadn't stolen something sacred, I knew the silence had turned into something darker. Something alive. Growing inside me like vines of rot. I should back up. My name is Avery Morgan, 27, marketing strategist for a rising tech brand in Austin, Texas. I had a plan, career growth, build equity in a startup, and eventually start my own boutique agency. Madison Hale was my best friend from college. She had always been the wild one, the fearless spirit with a magnetic laugh and a dangerously impulsive heart. We were the odd pair, her, unpredictable and flashy, me, practical and grounded. But it worked. At least, I thought it did. Ethan James came into the picture 2 years ago. He wasn't exactly a Prince Charming, but he was loyal, or so I believed, and he made me feel like I was enough. He noticed the things most people missed. The way I tugged my sleeve when I was nervous. How I hated cucumber in my salads. How I always cried during that one Coldplay song, no matter how many times I heard it. And for the first year, he loved me like no one else had. But then came the shifts, the subtle digs, the quiet dinners, the excuses. And Madison, she started showing up more often. At my apartment. At his place. Texting him memes before me. Tagging him in stories. It started as friendship, she claimed. He's like a brother, she laughed once. I remember smiling tightly as my gut twisted. Brothers don't kiss you in parking lots. Brothers don't sneak off for hours during Sunday brunch. Brothers don't lie. Last week, we were all at a friend's engagement party. I was wearing a navy blue silk dress, one I bought with Madison at a vintage shop months ago. She told me I looked like a goddess. Ethan didn't even glance up from his phone. And then I saw it. Her hand. Under the table. Lightly brushing his thigh. It was so quick, so stealthy, I almost gasped aloud. But I didn't. I just stared. Frozen. And Ethan, he didn't move away. My hands had clenched so hard my wine glass trembled. My heart wasn't breaking, it was mutating. Changing into something harder. Colder. Later that night, as we stood in the bathroom fixing our lipstick, Madison smiled at me through the mirror. You okay, Ave? Amazing. I lied. You've seemed tense lately. I dabbed my lips with tissue and met her eyes through the reflection. You're asking me that now? She paused. What's that supposed to mean? I don't know, Maddie. Maybe you should tell me what you think it means. There was a flicker in her expression, just a flicker. But I caught it. Fear. It was there, and then gone. Replaced with her usual glossy-eyed charm. You've been working too much, she said, fluffing her curls. You need a break. Right. A break. Like the one you're taking between my sheets and his. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, the shadows twisting into monsters. My brain was replaying everything. The giggles, the glances, the shared playlists on Spotify I didn't know about until recently. The way Ethan had started canceling plans more often, claiming client meetings, and coming home smelling faintly of Madison's signature vanilla musk. I wasn't delusional. I was being played by the two people I loved most. I kept thinking about Madison's dream job. She'd been talking about it for years. This creative director role at MuseLab, an elite brand strategy firm based in San Francisco with ties to major global clients. It was her obsession, her vision board, her lock screen, for God's sake. And they had recently opened a remote division in Austin. One opening, one position, hundreds of applicants. Madison had started preparing her portfolio a month ago. Asked me to review it. I did. I gave her notes, helped her pick out slides, helped her edit her tagline. But she didn't know something. They'd emailed me, too. I'd worked with one of the MuseLab partners through a freelance gig last summer, and he had remembered me. Invited me to apply. Quietly. Privately. And I hadn't mentioned it to Madison not once. At the time, I felt guilty. I told myself I'd step aside if she made it far. That it wasn't my dream, not the way it was hers.
But now?
Now, I felt nothing but clarity. They took something from me. Something irreplaceable. So, maybe it was time I returned the favor. I opened my laptop at 3:43 a.m., eyes burning from tears. I didn't remember crying. The MuseLab application was still open in my tabs. Subject: Final Portfolio Submission. Avery Morgan. Attachments: Portfolio.pdf, Campaign Strategy Overview, PPTX, Personal Video Pitch.mp4. I hovered my cursor over the send button for exactly 7 seconds. And then I clicked. Send. My hands were steady. My jaw was set. And for the first time in weeks, I felt alive. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming power. About making sure they never saw me the same again. 2 days later, Ethan officially ghosted me. No calls. No explanation.
Just gone.
And Madison? She didn't even bother to lie anymore. Her Instagram story told me everything I needed to know. A boomerang of them at brunch. His arm around her. Her caption: Sometimes the best love comes when you least expect it. I stared at it until the image blurred. Then I smiled.
Good.
Let her have him. Because soon, I'd have everything she ever wanted. It had been 3 days since Madison's soft launch of her relationship with Ethan on social media. She hadn't texted.
Called.
Nothing. Silence used to be something we respected in our friendship. A shared understanding that life could get busy. But now, her silence was weaponized, sharp and smug. And me? I was still smiling. Because while she was celebrating love, I was preparing for war. The day after I submitted my application to MuseLab, I got an email. Subject: Congratulations, you've advanced to the final interview stage. The words blurred as I read them under my breath, over and over again, sitting in my car outside my apartment complex. My heart wasn't beating, it was hammering. I had no idea how many applicants were left. But I knew Madison was one of them. And now, so was I. That evening, I bumped into her at our usual yoga studio. We hadn't crossed paths in a week. She looked radiant, glowing like someone who just got everything she ever wanted handed to her on a silver platter. Avery, she exclaimed, walking toward me with that fake effervescent energy that once felt real. I raised an eyebrow. Madison. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. You haven't answered my texts. You haven't sent any. She laughed lightly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. God, things have been so crazy. With work and, well, Ethan. There it was. She said his name out loud. Like a trophy. Like a flag she was planting on land that was never hers to begin with. I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled. I figured. You two seem cozy. She cocked her head. You're okay with it? Of course, I said. I want you to be happy. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but her face relaxed instantly. Thank you, Avenue, seriously. I didn't know how you'd take it, but you've always been the bigger person. I wanted to laugh. The bigger person? No, sweetie. I'm just the quieter storm. That night, I sat in bed reviewing everything about MuseLab. Their core values. Their most iconic campaigns. Their CEO, Carmen Ellington, a branding legend who is known for being both brilliant and brutal. She was going to lead the final interview round herself. That meant it was real. It also meant that every move mattered. Meanwhile, Madison posted a story of her sipping a chai latte with Ethan's hoodie on. Caption: brainstorming for the biggest opportunity of my life. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was jealous. Because I already knew she was underprepared. I knew the partner she'd be pitching to. Knew his tendencies, his buzzwords, his aversion to slides overloaded with text. She didn't. And I wasn't going to remind her. I wasn't going to help her. Not this time. The night before the interviews, I got a text from an unknown number. MuseLab. Final interview tomorrow.
Zoom.
10 a.m. You'll receive the prompt at 9:30. Prepare a 10-minute pitch. My pulse raced. I barely slept. I didn't tell anyone. Not my colleagues. Not my sister. Not even my group chat. Especially not Madison. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. My apartment was quiet. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in soft, golden lines across the floor. I stood in front of my mirror, wearing a simple black blazer, minimal makeup, hair pulled back tight. War paint. At 9:30 sharp, the email arrived. Pitched a rebrand strategy for a legacy company losing relevance with Gen Z audiences. Must include digital touchpoints, brand voice tone shift, and experiential elements. I smiled. It was practically written for me. I'd worked on something similar for a client last year. I pulled in my archives and got to work. Within 25 minutes, I had an outline, a brand voice pivot, and a visual flow that even Carmen would respect. When 10 o'clock struck, I joined the Zoom room. Carmen was there, sharp cheekbones, red lipstick, piercing stare. She nodded once and said, "Avery Morgan, you're up." The pitch flowed out of me like silk. My voice didn't shake. My words landed. I used every second wisely, visually walking them through a rebrand of a faded denim company repositioned for the TikTok generation. Relatable. Modern. Authentic. Carmen didn't smile, but I saw it in her eyes. Curiosity. When I finished, there was a pause. Then she said, "Interesting angle. Not what I expected. Thank you." I signed off, closed my laptop, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. Then my phone buzzed. Madison. OMG, I totally bombed that pitch. I froze halfway. Carmen scares the crap out of me. I talked too fast. Think I blew it. I stared at the screen. Then typed. "You'll be fine." She probably saw your potential. Then I put the phone down, turned off notifications, and went for a run. 3 days later, my inbox chimed. Subject: Welcome to MuseLab. Offer letter attached. I screamed into my pillow. Then cried. Then laughed until I cried again. But I didn't tell Madison. Not yet. I needed to wait. Make it cinematic. And fate? It delivered. We were invited to our college's alumni networking event that weekend. Same bar we used to drink at after finals. Same red neon sign over the door. Ethan didn't come. Madison did. She looked distracted, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She'd just gotten the rejection. I could tell. Ugh, she sighed after 2 cocktails. MuseLab ghosted me. Not even a thank you. Can you believe that? I took a sip of my drink, calm as ever. That's rough. She looked at me, confused. You didn't apply, right? I smiled faintly. No, I did. The color drained from her face. You did. And I got it. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I start next Monday, I added. Remote, but they'll fly me out once a month. She stared at me, silent. And for the first time in months, I was the one with all the power. I didn't expect what came next. That night, she called me 3 times. No voicemail. Just missed calls. The next morning, she showed up at my place unannounced. Hair messy. Face pale. No makeup. Can we talk? She asked, standing in my doorway like a ghost of herself. I stepped aside. She walked in and stood in the middle of the room, eyes scanning my space like she'd never been there before, even though she had countless times. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. I waited. Ethan and I, it was just we got close. You and he were already distant. You mean after you started texting him every night? She flinched. I know I hurt you. You betrayed me. Her eyes filled with tears. And I lost everything because of it. I tilted my head. No, Madison.
You lost me.
Everything else? That's just karma showing up on schedule. Madison didn't leave my apartment right away. She just stood there, like she was waiting for me to hug her, forgive her, rewind time. But I didn't. I watched her, this girl I once called a sister, break down in the center of my living room, not out of guilt, but out of disbelief that she wasn't the winner this time. You were always the good one, Avery, she whispered. You always had your life together. You were the favorite, the one people rooted for. And yet, I said, my voice steady, you still tried to take what little I had left. Her eyes met mine, glassy and bloodshot. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't care if you did. After she left, I sat alone in silence. It should have felt like victory, but instead, it felt like I was holding on to something cold and heavy. Was it justice? Or was I turning into someone I didn't recognize? That night, I scrolled back through old photos. Me and Madison at the lake, covered in mud and laughter. Her standing beside me at my college graduation. Us curled up watching trash TV in my dorm room, splitting a pint of cookie dough ice cream. Where did that version of her go? Where did I go? The next week, I had my first onboarding call with MuseLab. Carmen wasn't on it, but the VP of Strategy, Jonas Ward, was.
Suave. Direct.
A bit smug. Halfway through the call, he said something that made my stomach twist. Avery, I have to say, your portfolio stood out. I almost missed your submission. Honestly, someone on our review team had accidentally marked it as spam. I blinked. Seriously? He nodded. Yeah, weird, right? Luckily, I checked that folder every day. When I saw your name and your reel, I knew we had to push you forward. Something cold slithered down my spine. Do you know who flagged it? I asked slowly. He shrugged. Our system doesn't track that. But I doubt it was on purpose. Probably a glitch. Except I knew it wasn't a glitch. Because the only person who knew exactly when I submitted was Madison. That night, I dug deeper. I went back to my email submission receipt. And something clicked. The timestamp of the confirmation email was 2 minutes after I'd forwarded a draft of my pitch deck to Madison months ago, back when we were sharing ideas and supporting each other's careers. At the time, she said she loved my vision but thought I should hold off submitting until I polished it more. She even offered to review it again later that week. But instead, she'd taken my idea and submitted her own application the same day. The betrayal was deeper than I'd known. She didn't just steal Ethan. She tried to erase me completely. For the next few days, I spiraled. I couldn't focus at work. I replayed every conversation. Every smile that was secretly a smirk. Every "I'm so proud of you," that masked jealousy. Every "you deserve the best," that really meant "but I want it more." Had she always been this way? Had I just never seen it? Things came to a boiling point when I got an email from an unknown address. Subject: You should know who you're working with. Attached was a screenshot of a Slack message between Madison and someone named Kyle H. Madison. So annoyed. She submitted it after I told her not to, thinking of flagging it. I deserve this more than she does anyway.
Kyle.
She's your best friend, right? Madison. Not anymore. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just a suspicion. It was truth, written in black and white. She had tried to sabotage me. She'd said it out loud. And someone had seen it and decided to tell me. I stared at the email, hands shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to her apartment and throw the screenshot in her face. But instead, I opened Instagram and posted a very simple story. Karma doesn't need a witness. but sometimes receipts help. Smiley face. I didn't tag her. I didn't need to. The message spread like wildfire. Mutual friends started texting. People began unfollowing her. One even DM'd me and said, "She's been talking behind your back for months. I'm so sorry I didn't say anything earlier." The veil was lifting, and it was burning on its way down. 2 days later, I got another email. From Carmen Ellington herself. Subject: Private meeting request, this Thursday. The body of the email was brief. Just a Zoom link and the sentence: "We need to talk." My stomach flipped. I joined the call on time. Carmen appeared instantly, as sharp as ever. She didn't smile. "Ms. Morgan," she said, "it's come to our attention that you may have been the victim of internal interference during the application process." My heart pounded. "I want you to know we take this seriously," she continued. "What happened should not have happened, and it will be addressed internally." I appreciate that," I said. She studied me for a moment. "You've handled this with more grace than most would. That tells me you're someone who belongs here." I nodded, too stunned to speak. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and Ms. Lane will not be considered for future MuseLab opportunities. We've updated her file accordingly." I felt the words land like thunder in my chest. It was done. She was blacklisted. And she didn't even know it yet. That night, I went out with my coworkers to celebrate the completion of our first campaign sprint. I laughed more than I had in months. Ate fries I didn't need. Drank one too many cocktails. Danced under fairy lights. But even in the joy, there was a shadow. A weight I couldn't name. I realized then, I hadn't just lost Madison. I had lost the girl who used to believe people like her were incapable of betrayal. That kind of innocence doesn't come back. It dies once, and stays buried. Back at home, I checked my phone. One new voicemail from Madison. I played it, heart already bracing. "I saw your story. People are turning on me. I didn't know it would go this far. I was scared, okay? You were always better than me. Everyone saw it. Ethan saw it too. I just wanted to win for once. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her voice cracked. But I felt nothing. Because apologies built on exposure, not regret, aren't apologies. They're damage control. And I wasn't her PR team. I deleted the voicemail, without listening to the rest. The weeks that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Madison didn't call again.
She didn't text.
She didn't show up at my door with excuses or tears. But I knew she was out there, watching, waiting. And I knew I hadn't seen the last of her. Until one Friday night, around 11 p.m., I heard a knock on my apartment door. A soft knock. Not hurried. Not angry. I checked the peephole. And there she was. Mascara smudged. Hair tangled. Drenched from the rain. A pathetic, soaking shadow of the girl I once knew. I hesitated. Then, against all better judgment, I opened the door. She looked up at me, eyes bloodshot and hollow. I don't know where else to go," she whispered. I stood silent, heart cold. "Everyone's gone, Avery," she said. "Ethan left. My friends won't speak to me. People at work think I'm toxic. It's like I don't exist anymore." I crossed my arms. "That's what happens," I said softly, "when you burn every bridge and dance in the ashes." She walked inside without waiting for an invitation, dripping water onto my hardwood floor. "I didn't know how bad it would get," she said, pacing like a caged animal. I thought people would understand." "You thought they'd side with you?" I corrected. "I didn't mean for this to be war," she cried. "We were best friends." "No," I said, voice like steel. "We were best friends. Until you looked me in the eye, smiled, and slid a knife between my ribs." Her face contorted. "It wasn't like that, wasn't it?" I stepped forward. "You sabotaged my career. You slept with my boyfriend. You stole my idea and tried to erase me from my own life." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was jealous, okay? You were always so perfect. Everyone loved you. I just wanted a piece of it." "You didn't want a piece," I snapped. "You wanted all of it. And you were willing to destroy me to get it. Silence fell.
Thick.
Final. She collapsed onto my couch, trembling. I've lost everything, she said. Everything I worked for. Everyone I love. Even Ethan. My jaw tightened. You still loved him? She looked up.
No.
Not really. He was just validation. Proof that I could have what you had. I felt sick. Because it confirmed what I'd feared for so long. I wasn't just collateral damage in a love triangle. I was the target. She dug into her coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. I came to return this, she said. She placed it on my coffee table. I recognized it immediately. The silver locket she'd lost in college. The one I gave her the night I got my scholarship. She'd worn it for years, until one day she didn't. I never asked why. Now I knew, because somewhere along the way, our friendship had become a game to her. And trophies lose value once the winner is crowned. I don't want your apology, I said. And I don't want your guilt. She looked up. Then what do you want? I stared her down. I want to never see you again. Her lips parted like she might protest. But she didn't. Because she knew there was nothing left to say. She stood up slowly. Rainwater still dripping from her coat. Goodbye, Avery, she whispered. Goodbye, Madison. And just like that, she left my life. For real this time. The door clicked shut, and I felt free. But also empty. Because healing is rarely neat. It's jagged and slow, and wrapped in layers of grief. I curled up on the couch and let the silence hold me. Not because I was sad, but because I needed to mourn the girl I used to be. 3 weeks later, a message popped into my MuseLab inbox. From Carmen Ellington. Subject: quick feedback. I opened it immediately. Avery, your performance these last few weeks has been exceptional. Your strategic clarity and campaign execution are beyond your level of experience. I want to fast-track you to a leadership role. Let's discuss Monday. I sat frozen for a moment. Then I smiled. Not because I was winning, but because I was finally leading my own story. That weekend, I attended a creative conference in Chicago. A panelist, an award-winning director, talked about ambition, betrayal, and navigating toxic relationships in high-performance spaces. Then she said something that hit me like lightning. People think revenge is about hurting others. But real revenge? It's about healing yourself so completely that their absence becomes your peace. I stood, applauding, because for the first time in months, I understood. But the story wasn't quite over. That night, back at my hotel, I got a text. From an unknown number. Just 2 words. Still watching. I stared at it for a long, long time. And then I did what Madison never could. I blocked it. And went to sleep. Without fear. Without anger. Without her. 6 months later, I barely thought of her. My life had moved on. My MuseLab promotion turned into a full-time creative lead role. I had my own team now, bright, bold, passionate minds that actually listened to each other, respected each other. I'd even moved into a new apartment, closer to the lake, surrounded by sunlight and bookshelves and the smell of fresh lavender. It was quiet, peaceful, and mine. One afternoon, while walking home with an iced chai and a tote full of sketch pads, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. There was a poster taped to a streetlight. A local theater's upcoming production of Wolves Among Us, a drama about betrayal and ego in the fashion world. And at the bottom, assistant set designer, Madison Lane. My heart skipped. She hadn't disappeared. She'd just shrunk. Backstage.
Background.
A role where no one clapped for her. Where her name wasn't headlined. Where her dreams had been demoted. It was almost poetic. But I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel anything at all. Just a distant ache, like the ghost of a scar that doesn't hurt anymore, only reminds you that you survived. Later that week, while cleaning out an old box of notebooks, I found one I hadn't seen in years. The one Madison gave me when I moved to New York. Inside the front cover, she had written in loopy, purple ink, "May your stories always come true. Love you forever, M." I stared at those words for a long time. And then, gently, I tore the page out, folded it once, and burned it in a little ceramic bowl by the window. It wasn't anger. It was release. That night, I sat down to draft the pitch for my first solo campaign under Muse Lab's leadership track. The theme? When the mask slips, the truth roars. I wrote with fire, with clarity, with scars turned to gold. Every word I typed reminded me that I hadn't just survived the betrayal, I'd transformed because of it. A week later, I flew to LA for a conference. During the Q&A panel, a young intern raised her hand. She looked nervous.
Shaky.
I know this might sound personal, she said, but how do you recover when someone you trusted completely destroys you? The whole auditorium went still. All eyes turned to me. I smiled softly and leaned into the mic. You don't recover overnight, I said. You bleed. You scream. You ache. But then you start again. You rebuild. And if you're lucky, you grow into someone even you never saw coming. The girl teared up, and suddenly so did I. Back in New York, as the season shifted to autumn, I began a new ritual. Every Sunday morning, I'd walk to the Brooklyn flea market, sip coffee, and sketch strangers, capturing little stories in silence. One morning, I spotted a woman sitting alone on a bench. Thin coat, hair tied back in a rough knot, eyes darting across the crowd. She looked familiar, but faded. I walked past without stopping. Madison didn't recognize me. Or maybe she did. But this time, she was the ghost. And I was the one glowing in the light. One evening, I got a package on my doorstep. No name, no return address. Just a small, square box. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a tiny music box. Old. Scratched. The ballerina inside was broken off at the knees. There was a note tucked underneath. You win. I lost. Happy now. I stared at it for a long while. Then I closed the box, walked outside, and dropped it in the garbage chute. Because I wasn't playing anymore. I wasn't dancing in anyone else's story. I was writing my own. Months turned into a year. And with time, something surprising happened. I fell in love. Not with someone new, though that came later, quietly, kindly. But with myself. With the version of me that rose from fire and didn't flinch. The version that no longer chased validation. Or begged for apologies. Or waited for others to treat her the way she deserved. I had learned the most brutal, beautiful truth. The greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming untouchable. And just when I thought the chapter had finally closed, I got a call. From a blocked number. Out of curiosity, I answered. There was a pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in a year. Avery? My breath caught. I stayed silent. I saw your ad campaign. It's incredible. You're incredible. Still silent. I wanted to say I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. For everything. A long silence followed. Then she added quietly. I lost more than a friend. I lost the only person who ever believed in me. My voice was steady when I finally replied. Yeah, I said. You did.
Click.
I ended the call and smiled. That night, I lit a single candle, opened my journal, and wrote. This is how the story ends. She burned the bridge. I paved a road. And while she looked back, I ran forward.